Is the prosecutor's case against Bryan Kohberger so flimsy that any details that may leak out could blow the whole case? Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today I want to talk a little bit about the secrecy that's been created by law enforcement and investigators in the Idaho 4 case. At what point does the gag order go from protecting the investigation to something much bigger than that? At what point does the gag order begin to look like a cover-up? Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I am saying that that's what it appears to be. I've talked to a lot of people about this case, and I'm talking about law enforcement, attorneys, convicted felons, and a lot of people who are familiar with these types of situations. And they all say the same thing. Something's not right here. Something just doesn't add up when it comes to this Idaho 4 investigation. They all have the same questions that I have. The depth of this gag order and the great lengths that the state has gone to in order to eliminate and hide any information about the Idaho 4 investigation. The state has really gone above and beyond to try to hide every single detail about this investigation. Now, I'm not saying that gag orders are odd or uncommon. You know, it's not uncommon for a case to have a gag order. But when they start scrubbing the internet and removing media stories, that goes above and beyond. They don't just do that for everyone. So in my opinion, there's a lot of information that they want to keep hidden and that they don't want the public to see. It seems like a tremendous amount of effort has been made by the prosecution to ensure that absolutely no information gets out to the public. Now, I understand why law enforcement would withhold information. You know, it makes sense. You want to withhold any important details until all of the suspects are in custody. And you also want to give any witnesses time to come forward. You know, so you don't want to really release that information too early because you want to be able to validate anyone who's coming forward with any information that's pertinent to the case. But law enforcement has their suspect in custody. This is their guy. This is their sole suspect. And he's already behind bars. He's already been arrested. So he's not going to be using any of this information that might leak out about the investigation to elude capture because he's already been captured. This is the suspect that investigators and the prosecution have hung their hat on. They believe that Bryan Kohberger committed these crimes by himself. And Bryan Kohberger is currently sitting in a jail cell. So really, any information that might leak out on the internet isn't going to help Bryan Kohberger, you know, keep from getting arrested because he's already been arrested. So it seems as though the prosecution should be moving from the investigative phase to the trial phase because now they have their suspect and they're taking Bryan Kohberger to trial and the death penalty is on the table for this one. So you would think that the prosecution is pretty, confident about the information that they have against Brian Kohberger. But scrubbing the internet and law enforcement making very conflicting statements to the public is usually a pretty good sign that something or someone is being protected. If this is what it is, and they are protecting, a potential informant or a potential witness, maybe even a co-defendant, then that's understandable. If this gag order is in place to protect someone's life, then that's understandable. But why be so weird about it? It seems like law enforcement in this case has made this look way more suspicious than it really needs to. Why do none of the details in the investigation of these Idaho 4 crimes make sense? Why don't any of these details connect anywhere? All that we really know is that Jack S., Maddie, and Kaylee were at the corner club, and then we know that they walked over to the grub truck, and then they just run out of frame. And that's really all that we know for sure. And the only reason that we know that is because Kaylee's sister, Olivia Gonsalves, found the video. If she wouldn't have found the video of Jack S. and Maddie and Kaylee, at the corner club and the grub truck, then we would have never seen that either. But that's really all of the solid information that we know. And the only reason that we know that is because it was on surveillance camera footage. How many people do you think were walking around the King Roadhouse the night and the early morning of the crimes holding a cell phone? I'm guessing that there were a lot of people that had cell phones in their hand who were walking around this house after these crimes were committed. We also know that friends were called over to the house earlier that morning before 911 was called. And I'm guessing that all of those friends who were called over had cell phones in their hands. So it would seem as though people may have taken some pictures or maybe even some video. They weren't calling 911. So it would seem as though maybe they were taking pictures. That's what they do. So it would seem as though there would be some photos or some video from the people who were walking around this house after these crimes had been committed. Everybody nowadays is carrying a cell phone. They're basically carrying a camera and a video camera in their hand most of the time. So they weren't calling 911. So maybe they were, taking photos. It's kind of like when you see that video of someone drowning and you think to yourself, what's the person doing who's taking the video? Why aren't they helping this person? Young people take photos and record videos for their social networks. And they do this nonstop. So I would imagine that there could be a lot of pictures or video from this crime scene out there. A lot. But we haven't seen any of them. Going viral on social networks is very popular these days. And people will go to great lengths to do it. People will go to great lengths to have a viral video. Now, some of those people will even do criminal acts just to go viral on social media. But so far, there has not been any photos or videos leaked to the public. None. Now, I expected that after a little bit of time, that these photos or videos or information from people who live in the community would start to leak out. But so far, that has not happened. All of these people around the crime scene, and not one photo or video has been posted. There was a lot of people around the King Roadhouse, and nobody who was around that house is saying anything to the public or leaking any type of information. Nobody in this community is talking. Now, this gag order, it doesn't apply to the people who live in the community. So are they just not sharing any information or talking about this case by choice? Why are the people in this community choosing not to say anything or share any information? Are they being intimidated? Are they scared to maybe talk about this case? It just seems strange that there were so many people, young people, around this crime scene, holding cell phones, and not one piece of information has been leaked. It just seems odd. And then you have law enforcement, and they're basically just saying, well, you're just going to have to trust us. That's what Chief Fry said. We're not going to give you any information. You're just going to have to trust us. We just have to take their word for it. They don't need to provide any explanations or any receipts. We're going to do what we're doing, and you get what we give you, basically. Now, I understand how the court process works, and I understand that these types of cases take time. These types of cases take time because there's a lot of information and there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of witnesses that have to be talked to and, scheduling issues. So it's understandable that this court case is going to take some time. But they have their suspect in custody. They believe that they can convict Bryan Kohberger on a capital murder charge. This is a big case. And there's a lot of eyes on the prosecution. So, what's with all of the games? I mean, if they're asking us to believe that a 28-year-old PhD student went into a house and viciously took the lives of 4 victims on 2 different floors with a sharp-edged blade in less than 10 minutes, and then just lucked out that the 2 roommates who were left alive in the house just decided not to call 911, there's going to need to be some proof as to how that happened, because it sounds pretty unbelievable. It sounds like the roommates who were still in the house alive just decided to give this attacker an 8-hour head start, which Bryan Kohberger wouldn't have needed anyway, because allegedly after he committed these heinous crimes, he went to Albertsons and went grocery shopping and then went home. He never left the area until the Christmas break. He stayed in school, he stayed in his apartment, and he stayed in the car that he supposedly drove around this crime scene multiple times. He never left. That just does not make sense. Everybody in this case, everyone who surrounds this case left, except for the one suspect, except for Bryan Kohberger. So if the prosecution has the information that proves that Bryan Kohberger did commit these crimes, why not just present that information? Ann Taylor has been asking for this evidence for over a year. It's been 15 months. And Ann Taylor has stated that she still has not seen a clear reason as to why law enforcement arrested her client, Bryan Kohberger. That should have been taken care of already. That should have already been established. But this prosecution is so busy trying to hide every, small detail and every minute piece of information about this case that it's scattered everywhere. Their case is not very well put together. It looks from the outside like a complete mess. And in my opinion, they're working so hard to hide the information that they're not doing a very good job of presenting the information that would make Bryan Kohberger guilty in the first place. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how this entire community is silent. How do they get this entire community to be silent and not share any details, not share any information? This is a small town, and the people in Moscow, Idaho, I believe have a pretty good idea of what might have happened at the King Roadhouse. But nobody is saying a word. It's going to be interesting when the trial comes to see how the prosecution presents their information. I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm starting to wonder if there even will be a trial. I'm starting to wonder if the prosecution does have this information, does have this damning evidence against Bryan Kohberger. When this trial comes, I feel like there's going to need to be a top hat on the table of the prosecution. And they're going to need to pull a rabbit out of that hat in order to convince the people who are watching this case that they have the goods on Bryan Kohberger. Now, stay tuned for my next video, and thanks for watching. If you liked my video, please like and please subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time.